Second reading 29:1 God's explicit promise of protection dispelled Jacob's previous feelings of apprehensiveness and trepidation. Light of foot, Jacob enthusiastically and optimistically set out for the land of the people of the East. See Figure 28. When he reached the bank of the Jordan River, he put his staff into the water, causing it to miraculously split for him and allowing him to cross over to the opposite bank. 17. 2. When he reached Aram Naharaim, he looked, and there before his eyes was a well in a field, and 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it, for the local shepherds watered the flocks from that well. The boulder covering the opening of the well was huge. 3. Every day, when all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would together roll the boulder off the opening of the well and water the sheep, and then replace the boulder over the opening of the well. But Jacob did not know that this was how the shepherds watered their sheep. For Jacob asked them, "My brothers, where are you from?" And they replied, "We are from Choran." 5. He asked them, "Do you know Laban, the grandson of Nahor?" And they replied, "We know him." 6. He asked them, "Is he well?" And they replied, "He is well, and here is his daughter Rachel, approaching with the flocks." Laban would send his daughters to tend his flocks because he had no sons to do so. 18. 7. When Jacob saw the shepherds sitting by idly, he assumed they had finished pasturing their flocks. He said to them, "Look, it is still broad daylight. If you are day laborers, you have not yet put in a full day's work. And even if these are your own flocks, it is still not yet time to round up the livestock and take them home. If they need to drink, water the flocks and go off and pasture them." 8. They replied, "We cannot, because the boulder covering the well is too heavy for us to move. We have to wait until all the flocks are rounded up and all the shepherds can roll the boulder off the opening of the well together. Only then we can water the animals." 9. He was still speaking with them when Rachel arrived with her father's flock, for she was a shepherdess. 10. And when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the flocks of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob stepped forward and effortlessly rolled the boulder off the opening of the well, and watered the flocks of Laban, his mother's brother. 11. Then Jacob kissed his cousin Rachel. He wept aloud, for 2 reasons. First, he foresaw that, although he and Rachel would indeed marry, they would not be buried together. Second, whereas Eliezer was able to impress the family with an abundant show of wealth when he arrived in Choran in search of a bride for Isaac, in contrast, he himself had arrived destitute, after having relinquished all he owned to Eliphaz. 12. Seeing that she was perplexed by his unusual behavior, Jacob told Rachel that he was both her father's relative as well as Rebekah's son. When he told her that his purpose in coming was to marry her, Rachel apprised him of the fact that her father was a deceiver and would no doubt try to trick him out of marrying her. Jacob responded that if Laban would try to deceive him, he would prove that he was her father's equal in deception, but if would treat him honestly, he would act as Rebekah's son and also behave honestly. Since Rachel's mother was no longer alive, she ran and told only her father of Jacob's arrival. 13. When Laban heard the news of the arrival of Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to greet him, not because of any love for Jacob, but rather 19, because he recalled how Eliezer had come years before laden with riches. When he saw that Jacob had arrived empty-handed, he embraced him, trying to feel around for gold coins in his pockets. When he saw that he had none, he then kissed him, trying to ascertain if he perhaps had pearls in his mouth. When he saw he had no pearls either, Laban nevertheless brought him home, and Jacob told Laban of all these events, how he was forced to flee his brother and give up all his wealth on the way. He did not mention that he had been sent to marry one of his daughters. 14 Laban said to him, "If that be the case, I have no reason to welcome you into my home other than the fact that you are truly my own flesh and blood. You may stay with me for a month if you tend my flocks." So Jacob stayed with him for a month and tended his flocks. 15 Laban then said to Jacob, "Just because you are my close relative, does it mean that you must work for me for free? Tell me what your payment should be." 16 Now Laban had 2 twin 20 daughters. The name of the older one, who had emerged from the womb first, was Leah, and the name of the younger one was Rachel. He also had 2 additional daughters, Bilhah and Zilpah, whom he had fathered by his concubine 21, and whom he kept as handmaids. 17 Ever since Leah and Rachel were born, people used to say, "Laban has 2 daughters and Isaac has 2 sons. The older daughter is destined for the older son, and the younger daughter for the younger son." Leah, thinking that she was destined to become one of Esau's wives, cried constantly. Her eyes were therefore swollen and tender, while Rachel's face had beautiful features, and the luster of her complexion caused her to be of beautiful appearance.